Welcome to the Driving Federal Innovation Series. My guests today are Dave Merrill, a Business Area Vice President in GDIT's Federal Health Division, and Stephen Coles, the President of Snowflake Federal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Our discussion today will focus on IT and business process modernization, how agencies can achieve results, gain efficiency, save money, but also, and importantly, respond and adapt during these periods of uncertainty. So Steve, I'm going to start with you to get us going on this discussion. Agencies are moving to the cloud. They're dependent on data more than ever before. How can they kind of find all these kind of balances of driving efficiency, getting cost savings, preventing fraud, of course, but still improve how they deliver on the mission?
Got it. Yeah, thank you for the question. Really appreciate it. I think one of the biggest issues is the procurement cycle. Like the procurement cycle takes ages to actually get innovation into the government. And being able to modernize with modern clouds and modern SaaS platforms that are available at the pace of commercial. So you're bringing in commercial technologies that are ready to actually meet the government's needs without really going through that long procurement process that they normally have.
And the reason why the SaaS and cloud are so important is because you're building on platforms that, one, exist, and two, have already gone through the ATO process for security reasons. It's not you're starting at zero each time. Talk a little bit about that benefit.
100%. Like at GDIT, Dave, we partnered well, and they actually put the system through an ATO process. They got a FedRAMP system in place, and now an innovative technology like the latest, model comes from ChatGPT, or the latest model comes from Anthropic. They're just putting it to place against the mission work in their healthcare customers.
Just to chime in and build on that for a moment, I mean, one of the things that we've seen that I think has actually been a tremendous outcome of leveraging SaaS and cloud-based solutions, especially for data, is that you have the ability to innovate that solution without all of the difficulties or the cost or the long procurement cycles that go along with government acquisition. And the fact that, providers like Snowflake are able to actually keep those systems up to date and develop what the needs are both today and moving forward, man, that really helps us as we're trying to deliver on the mission to be able to meet those needs.
Awesome. So, yeah, it's been an amazing partnership with us working together to get that done.
Agreed. It's been great.
Steve, you mentioned the procurement cycle. There's been a lot of push to reimagine the FAR. There's a whole FAR overhaul that's going on. There's been movements to use OTAs or CSOs, all the different, but really what it comes down to is less the method you're buying, but really the platform itself that you're buying and how that platform can really drive the agencies towards efficiency. When you talk to government customers, do they understand that? Are they still stuck in are we going to be firm fixed price or time and materials? Or what's the discussions like?
Unfortunately, I think it is definitely a cultural change that both Dave and I see, is that people, especially procurement officers, are by the book. They're going through their check boxes. They're checking off what they need to do traditionally. And I don't think the new FAR laws are actually hitting yet. No. And I think it's really going to take some time for them to get there. Dave, what do you think from that perspective?
Well, I agree, and the contracting officers have to do what they have to do. The program teams that are implementing the mission they need the flexibility that they can get, and that's where solutions like Snowflake, what system integrators are able to provide in terms of the nimble nature in which we can help them achieve the mission are critically important.
Dave, you brought up this idea of program teams need the flexibility. Maybe walk me through what that looks like a little bit, because the people we think of acquisition as contracting officers, an RFI comes out, and then the RFP, and then you bid, and then you win, then you protest. Then you win, and then you start to implement. Why do program teams need that flexibility? How can they take advantage of it?
The mission's always changing. I mean, that's the reality. When you look at the missions that are going to be executed under a 5-year contract, it's going to change. The needs of the people that are implementing, whether it's legislative priorities or administrative priorities, to meet the needs of the American populace, those evolve continually, and you have to be able to lean into that type of change to be able to make it happen. I think about what we see in the federal health space. I spend a lot of time in the federal health space. Everybody is probably fixated on cost, especially today. And federal healthcare costs, actually all healthcare costs, have been growing at a rapid rate that's outpaced inflation for a long time. If you look at it from 2017 through 2021, it grew at 5%. Over the last 3-4 years, it's grown at 8% But guess what? The actual data that is being collected by these systems, man, it's been growing at a rate that's much greater. A annual compounding rate of about 36% is what we're seeing in the amount of data that's being created. And because of that, we actually need data platforms that are expandable, flexible, able to help us meet what we need to be able to do. And so when I talk about program team flexibility, that's what I'm talking about. Like those folks that are implementing the mission need mission tech, like what GDIT and Snowflake are able to deliver together, to be able to actually pivot toward where that mission need is. And that's what we're doing in the field today.
Great segue, because you guys, GDIT and Snowflake, have been working on a specific project around modernization. What is that project? Tell us a little bit about it, and then what are you learning from it, and how can you kind of take those lessons and apply them more broadly?
Oh, man. Thanks for that question. So we have been working together actually for a number of years across a number of different federal agencies where we've seen similar types of needs in the requirement to be able to be nimble. We started modernization projects, together, gosh, I don't know, probably about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But just to that point, back in the late teens, even before efficiency was like something everybody was talking about, our government customers had a need to, be able to deal with this expansive data format. I mean, we had on-premise data centers with a lot of hardware that were supporting these data missions. Think like rows of racks of equipment that are supporting it. And if you think about it from a cost perspective, it's just unsustainable for a federal agency to be able to, leverage an on-prem solution like that with the type of data growth that we were talking about. So we started conducting, like what we call decision analysis and resolution type style approaches, all the types of things that one does. But it's really like a comparison approach, a mature comparison approach to be able to say, what are our customers going to be able to need to do in order to modernize? And we worked with Snowflake and we worked with a couple other companies, and at the outcome of that, determined that for where we thought the needs would be, both when we implemented it and in the future, that the Snowflake platform would be the right one. And then we underwent a modernization process to ensure that we were able to migrate and transition out of those on-prem legacy solutions to more modern, cutting-edge solutions that included things such as Snowflake to be able to meet the need. And it's actually created a lot of great results for us. It drove costs down, for one. The cost to deliver it went down. But we also saw incredible performance benefits. When we look at the time that it took to execute queries as a case in point, that's cut to just about 50% of what it was before, and we're seeing continual improvements on a regular basis. And if I can be on my soapbox for like another moment, the only way that actually works is if you really have a good partnership with the cloud provider, right? I mean, I know your team, at Snowflake learned a lot through that process of transitioning. I mean, we're talking about big systems, right? Transitioning to the cloud. The engineering talent that they brought to the table and some other cloud providers brought to the table so we could all work together and deliver was, it was up there. And they've dealt with solutions and problem sets that are different with federal health data than they've seen in other environments. So the partnership's really important.
Dave's being modest. I mean, one of his customers has over 1 trillion healthcare records.
Yeah,
and
they have a lot of data.
1.6 trillion of payments. So what he's done there and how they've built that is quite incredible, and how they've scaled it and the money that you've saved. I mean, doing all of that while saving money from a modernization perspective was just, I'm in awe kind of what you've done there.
Let's talk a little bit about the results. I know, Dave, you mentioned reducing time by 50% and maybe even better. You mentioned cost. Do you have any other data you're able to share about some of those results? Because it's great to say things are better, but there's always that, well, if we move to the cloud, if you remember back in 2010 timeframe,
sure,
it'd be cheaper. And then what agencies found was it wasn't really that much cheaper. You got more for the buck, more bang for the buck, but the buck was still the same dollar that you were spending. But what are you finding? What other results can you share?
Well, I mean, so that is true, right? We're able to get more bang for the buck today, and that's continuing to grow. I mean, if we look at like one of those systems that you were just talking about, it grew from, over 6 petabytes of data that we transitioned to over 16 petabytes of data over, a brief period of time, and we've been able to support that. But what I would also say is that it has enhanced the way that we're able to provide engineering talent and support and making these systems and the data that's that resides within them available for use. One of the key enablers here has been the ability to deliver AI and other solutions in a meaningful way for those missions. And if I look at where we might have been in an on-prem environment, the labor that we needed to be able to support like just maintaining a data center and the rest of that, we don't need that anymore. If the government wants to, they had the wherewithal to repurpose that labor to actually get to higher value items. And that has been a big game changer for the government.
You brought up AI. We've got to talk about it. We can't get through a discussion without those two letters. But let's talk about the future, because modernization is one of those topics that we'll always continue to talk about. And that's the beauty of technology. You're never done, right? You never just put your hands up and go, look, I'm finished modernizing. There's always another thing to modernize. What's the next step? Working agencies, how can they prepare for kind of that continued evolution? Steve, you want to lead us off, or do you want to pass it to Dave?
Steve, if you want to, yeah.
Well, I really think that one of the things that we wanted to highlight in these data clouds, it's a consumption model. So the government's only using what they need to use and when they need to use it. So if the latest model comes out from Anthropic or ChatGPT, they only use what they need to use. It's not like they're paying software long-term and large bills and then having it sit on the shelf. So that's really, in this administration, that's been a big plus for them. And I think you've seen that more recently. We saw an investment, a 5-figure investment of around $40,000, actually yield back a 9-figure investment in terms of duplicative payments that were being made. So over $100+ million, which is absolutely incredible. Not a huge win for us, tens of thousands of dollars, but hundreds of millions of dollars back to the taxpayer.
And that, just to clarify, that was a $40,000 investment that the agency made to help kind of figure out where maybe improper payments are going or fraud was happening, and they could kind of say, hey, we saved or we clawed back more than $100 million.
Yeah,
that's
great. There's the brains of GDIT to figure out what they needed to do, what technology they needed to use, and they utilized some good technology to make it happen.
I think commercial technology like Snowflake is really important and relevant to what we're going to see out of the needs of federal missions as we move forward. And so that is something that we as a company lean into. Actually, one of the things I really love is that GDIT is focused on mission technology delivery. Like, it's all just there to support the mission. And so what I think, to answer that question, is that here within the federal government, we're going to see an increased need to be able to deliver these technology solutions to meet mission needs faster and more nimbly. And so when you think about technologies like artificial intelligence, cyber, mission software, like, first, those are critically important, and second, that's what our teams do every day. So they get really excited about actually being able to satisfy and fulfill missions around AI, cyber, and like the software that powers like mission delivery. And that's what we can do with commercial solutions like Snowflake. So as we look forward, I see more of those three areas.
Yeah, and one of the really big things is the government is bringing in technology every day, and then there's a long cycle to get it FedRAMP or get it authority to operate. It takes a long time, but when you actually have a platform that already has this in place, you can bring in new technologies and layer that into essentially the boundary, and they can take advantage of it in minutes versus waiting 18 months to actually get it there. So there's a huge benefit there, not only to bring data, commercially available data there, without having to go through that huge process. So huge procurement savings from a timeline perspective, huge savings from an authority to operate or compliance perspective, which just leads to more time to mission. And like the example that he put out, a $40,000 cost investment from a technology perspective to actually go after a mission need that comes and impacts a 9-figure potential savings to the taxpayer. It's pretty awesome. It's amazing what you did.
Dave, in the last kind of 25 seconds or so we have left, I just want to have you tag back to one thing. One of the things that I think we hear about this efficiency push, efficiency is not new. Like, I've been in this market long enough, everyone talks about efficiency. Same thing with like kind of that mission tech. Do you get a sense that something has changed in how agencies are looking at tech these days versus, because they were never just buying tech to buy tech, though I guess that could and does happen. But they always, and contractors too, also talk about meeting the mission. What do you think has flipped? What's you mentioned culture early on. Is there something that flipped, or just it's a what, in your opinion?
Well, that's a great question, Jason. I think that culturally, what we have seen is a real focus on ensuring that when they're buying a solution, it's both ready for what they need today, but the future, without the extra bells and whistles that they may not need. And I think that that's one of the big drivers that we're seeing today. Being ready to help, from a future-proofed AI standpoint, is as important without necessarily driving toward, just that efficient, lean, mean capability.
I think the point you're making is really important to highlight is the bells and whistles, that they're not trying to overbuy. What do we need today, and can we improve and later evolve? Not we have to, but when new tech is available, when things change, when to your point, laws, policies, whatever change, can we adopt? And I think that's the key piece.
Yeah, and if I were to build upon that, just for a moment, Jason, I think that's a great point. When they're buying commercial technology, they want to get the best of what they have seen in industry elsewhere, and that's what commercial technology provides. They may not be necessarily overbuying for that, but they're buying a future-proof that as solutions that are available are ready in the commercial space, they're getting the most bang for the buck out of it.
The big difference too is that they're adapting a commercial model, right?
Yeah.
So they're consuming what they need. If they need it, they use it. If they don't, they don't. And they don't pay, which is not your normal model from a commercial or from a federal perspective.
Not at all. And we could probably have a whole show just on the consumption model
exactly.
and the frustrations that of getting there.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we're out of time for this session of Driving Federal Innovation Series.
Yeah.
So let me thank my guests. Dave Merrill is a business area vice president in GDIT's Federal Health Division. And Stephen Coles is the president of Snowflake Federal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm Jason Miller, and you're watching Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Snowflake.